Why did you leave your home country? Can you explain to me how the marriage was arranged? I understand. Why did they choose this man? And when did you see him for the first time? Can you tell me what you thought of him when you first saw him at the wedding? How did this first meeting go? What happened when he started to become violent with you? Can you give me as much detail as possible about what happened when he started to become violent with you before the birth of your daughter? And did you talk to anyone about it? Was it when he started to be violent with you that you went to see your parents? What did you say to yourself when he started to change his behavior? And how long after your wedding was your daughter born? What exactly happened on the day of her birth? When he went after your daughter, how did your family react? Who was this man who told him he'd buy your daughter? And is it a frequent occurrence for fathers to sell their daughters? Why didn't you go to the police? I know that the authorities don't necessarily intervene when men prove to be violent against their wives, but I'm surprised that they didn't act when it was a matter of selling your daughter. Why were they rich? So why didn't he marry a girl from a rich family? If you weren't able to appeal to the authorities, did you attempt to go to an organization? Okay. Did you go to an organization that helps women? How did you know that the moment was coming when he was going to sell your daughter? When your daughter grew up, how did she feel about knowing that that was going to happen to her? Which of your relatives did you go to, and where? Why those villages? How did he know where you were? How long before your final departure from Pakistan did you run away? Did you make any other attempts to escape between this one and your leaving Pakistan? You said the two of you left together, but what about the other two children? Why did your relatives end up intervening, whereas previously they had never helped you? And the relatives with whom you found refuge didn't intervene when he came to look for you? Under exactly what circumstances did he kill his sister? Killing his sister doesn't seem to have caused him any problem. And how is it that 11 years passed between the birth of your two eldest children. Can you tell me why you eventually did have more children? So he gave you freedom to act if he let you wait until you wanted to have a second child. And he didn't calm down when your son was born? In general, what behaviour did you adopt? What would you say to him? How did your parents react when they knew that your brother was selling some land to help you get away? And what exactly are your fears about going back? I have no more questions. Do you have anything else you wish to add?
So I have to make sure that you understand the interpreter. Regarding your statement, did you need to have help to write it or only for translating it? And have you been able to verify that what was written corresponds with what you said? Regarding your education, you were in the last year of 2000. We're now going to move on to your asylum application itself, and my first question is, why did you leave your country? Why were you arrested? What demonstration? Was it only the parish that organized it? Who were the organizers of this march? What is the committee? Why did you decide to demonstrate? Did you speak to anyone, and were you influenced by particular people before demonstrating? Which debates? On which channel? Can you name the critical programs? Do you know that the TV channel has just had some problems in Kinshasa? Can you tell us about it? Did the authorities take action against this channel? What happened at the time of the demonstration on the 30th June 2000? If you had been able to vote in the elections, which party would you have voted for? Were you active in the parish that demonstrated? Could you tell us now about your involvement? Was it about a political agenda? Can you name those in charge of... In practical terms, how was the demonstration of planned? On 31st December 2000, at what point did you withdraw? So you actually had a discussion in your parish. What speech? What route had been planned for the demonstration? What were those of previous marches? So, you were arrested. Can you describe that? What was that place? What card? When was this card taken from you? Did you say something particular about this friend to persuade them? So at the time of your arrival, was it a house or an office? A police station? What happened after the interrogation? Were you detained there for a long time? In the same cell? How many people were there in the cell? Always 5 people. Do you know why they were arrested? They were in the jeep with you? Now can you briefly describe the cell? How did a day in detention go exactly? Can you describe that? You had to clean what? Were there other chores to carry out there? And how did meals take place? How did you get out of this detention facility? What was the name of the village? So you went there. Did you go past anyone or on your way out of the building? About what time was it? And where did this car take you? To house. And what happened then? You saw the major? How long did this period last? How did you cross to Brazzaville? But why a month and a half? Were you able to see your parents again? Did your parents pay for the journey to... Was it a borrowed passport? Were you subjected to ill treatment in detention? But you wrote that an officer condemned you to death shortly after your arrival. On what day of the week did you release full? Were you still in contact with your family? Were they worried or threatened after you escaped? Was the major worried? Do you have any news of him? Okay, so today, what are your fears about returning to your home country? Did you look in to join your opposition party? I have no further questions to ask you. But do you wish to add anything?
Do you understand the interpreter? So, under what conditions did you write your statement? Did you need any help? And were you able to verify that what was written was consistent with what you had said? Did you experience fighting and attacks on your city? What's the population of your city? Which zones were dangerous? You had seen refugee camps, is that right? In which communities? Where is that? What communities did you pass through between and were there major cities? Is it correct your paternal uncle is called? And is it correct that it is your mother you've written on the application? You were married on... Is that correct? So how did you know or meet your husband? Wasn't anyone in your family surprised that you didn't get married earlier? You have your baccalaureate, then spent 5 years at... Were you able to finish your studies? Okay. You did your national service in a hospital, and yet you didn't get your certificate. For what reasons did you leave your home country? Why would they kill you? Go on, please. You can speak in confidence. Do you know why they did that? You yourself had been threatened by the police about it. Your husband still hasn't resumed contact with you. On what date was your interrogation? Did they interrogate you at your house? Police or intelligence service? How long did you stay there? Regarding the first reason, your paternal uncle coerced you into prostitution and reported you to your mother. Is that right? When did he report you? How did you know that he had reported you? So, you had to explain to your mother why your father wasn't at the wedding. You explained that to ensure that he was absent from your wedding. But could you do without his presence and advice for a marriage? Thank you. For how long did your paternal uncle force you to prostitute yourself? And this continued during your period of military service? In which neighborhood were you a prostitute? In the street or a house? Were there other prostitutes on this street? I didn't know that regime tolerated prostitution. What were you doing to conceal this? What I mean is, what were you doing to hide what you were doing? Did you see other prostitutes being arrested? Were they not as careful as you? Could they not have used the same tactic? And you never ran into someone from your family or someone you knew on this street? So you can explain that you fell pregnant to a client. What year was this? And your father forced you to have an abortion. And you yourself would have wanted to keep the child. So, at the time of the abortion, you underwent an infibulation. But why an infibulation if your father wanted to prostitute you? I'm sorry for asking this question, but you wouldn't have been able to make love. Was the infibulation incomplete? Did they leave an orifice? What are your fears in the event of returning to your home country?
Why did you leave your home country? When were you arrested? And where was this? Who arrested you? What do you mean? And how did you find you in this field? But what connection could they make between a farm worker and the aliens? I still don't see the connection. How did they know that you are connected to a Malian employer? So you were taken directly to a large prison? And what happened? And what questions did they ask you? You didn't tell them that you were Tama? What types of ill treatment were you subjected to? How long were you detained? Do you know if your boss was found and arrested? And how do you know this? Do you think he participated in the massacres? Can you describe the place where you were detained? You were detained in the courtyard? But how could you see the courtyard? What was this cell like? And you were on your own there? How did a day in detention pass? And how did you know it was somehow of an opportunity? Okay. How were the meals organized? How was the distribution of meals organized? And do you know who? But the prisoners would be able to attack them and seize their weapons. But you were saying there were 150 people in the cell. I don't understand the difference in the size of your cell in your statements. You could see the other cells from yours? So, how many windows did you have? And how long were you detained? How did you get away? And you continue to be tortured despite the transfers to the forest? So, how did you mutiny? What was that action? But even so, they were able to get up and take their weapons? Which communities did you go through during your escape? You went there on foot? Which communities did you cross to get to? How did you pay for your escape from the camp up until leaving your country? Can you tell me about your other movements since... Can you tell me which communities? Sir, I'm having trouble being convinced. I can't find the places you told me about earlier. But where was this in relation to the railway? So, the field was to the east? There were other communities along the rail track? Do you know? Can you tell me about the attack on your village? What did you see of the attackers in these circumstances? And how did you get away? So, right now, what are your fears about returning to your home country? Who is the threat? Do you wish to add any other documents to your file? I have no further questions. Do you wish to add anything?